Hi, everybody. My name is Rafa Lombardino, and this is Translation Confessional. Before we continue, I wanted to tell you a bit about TMX Editor. It was created by Max Programs, the same company behind Swordfish, which you probably already know is my CAD tool of choice since 2008. TMX Editor is the ideal tool if you receive a large TMX file from a client and need to verify and edit segments on the fly. I use it all the time when clients have tagged the language combinations in a way that isn't aligned with how I keep my translation memories organized. For example, if they tag the target language as PT when they meant to indicate it's Brazilian Portuguese, I can use TMX Editor to change the target language to PT-BR and voila! The TMX is ready to be imported into Swordfish and I can go about my workday. If you'd like to give TMX Editor a try, go to this webpage, bit.ly/tc-tmx. Once again, the webpage is bit.ly/tc-tmx. Hope you like it. Misconceptions in translation and interpretation. This episode will be divided into two sections. The first one will be directed at clients who request our services as translators and interpreters. So feel free to forward this episode to that one client of yours who may be having some trouble understanding what it is that you do. After a commercial break, the second section of this episode will be directed at you, fellow language professional, who may still have some gaps in your professional experience or are stuck where to go next in your career. So I hope some of the topics I'm about to address can be helpful to broaden your view of our field. Translation and interpretation are two different things. Translators work with written documents and audiovisual materials. They provide translations in writing, as well as subtitles and transcriptions. Interpreters work with the spoken word. They provide interpretation to live events, meetings, and all forms of verbal interactions between people who speak different languages. Translating and interpreting require different sets of skills. Not all interpreters can be translators, and not all translators can be interpreters, even though some professionals may perform both activities. When in doubt, the best you can do is ask and check a translator's or an interpreter's credentials and experiences, so you know you're hiring the perfect professional for the right task. Translators and interpreters don't work with all languages. Just because someone works as a translator or an interpreter, that doesn't mean they are able to work with several different languages. In general, translators translate from their second language into their native language. That is, they have acquired knowledge in a foreign language and are able to translate concepts and ideas into their main language. Some translators are fully bilingual and can translate in both directions, but it is not safe to assume that just because someone translates from A to B, that they can also translate from B to A. It is more common for interpreters to work in both directions when facilitating communication in real time. When in doubt, ask and check their credentials and experiences. Translators and interpreters are not walking dictionaries. As language professionals, we have dedicated many years to acquiring a lot of knowledge in our languages. However, that does not mean that we know all the words in a dictionary. Above all, translators and interpreters are language researchers, and we strive to find the perfect word in one language that fits the meaning of a word in the other language. That means we use dictionaries and glossaries as our main tools, but also analyze context, register, field of knowledge, and the target audience in order to facilitate communication. In other words, don't come to us and ask, how do you say X in this language? Odds are we will ask you for more context, and we may even need to look it up in a dictionary since we don't hold all the knowledge in the world inside our brains. Translation and interpretation are not done automatically. Even though technology has greatly improved our activities, translators and interpreters still have to rely on our brain to facilitate communication. Translators do not translate a document with the touch of a button. Interpreters don't open their mouths and let words come out arbitrarily. There is a lot of information processing involved in translating and interpreting, and the main component of this activity is the human brain. Having said that, it's not possible for a translator to translate thousands of words in a single day, just as much as it's not possible for an interpreter to work for hours without a break. Did it take days, if not weeks or months, for an entire team to put together the original material in the source language? It may take just as long for translators to translate that same material into the target language. Did someone have to put a lot of effort into researching a subject while preparing to present it in front of an audience? Interpreters will need access to that material while preparing to interpret a presentation live, so that audience members who don't speak the same language as the speaker will understand the information being presented. Translators and interpreters provide a highly specialized service that must be paid for accordingly, for language is not a commodity. As a client, did you think that more material equals more discounts? Did you think that just because you can keep a translator or interpreter busy, you could get some perks out of your deal? Do you follow a buy one, get two mentality? Let me tell you, that does not apply to buying language services. Just because a document looks very short or you only need a couple of sentences translated, that doesn't mean that translators can do it fast, easily, and for little money, or worse, as a freebie. Just because interpreters can professionally facilitate communication between two parties that don't speak the same language, that doesn't mean they can work for hours and hours on end and be available last minute according to your schedule. Translating and interpreting takes time, preparation, and skills. The higher the volume of words that need translation, the more time a translator will need to work on that material correctly. And splitting up a large project into a bunch of different translators isn't ideal either, because different translators translate differently. If you give the same sentence to 10 translators, you might as well end up with 10 different versions of the same sentence, because translating is a very subjective process. And just because you only need a quick 15-minute session interpreted, that doesn't mean you don't have to pay for that interpreter to prepare for it and study the material that will be presented during that session. If we're talking about an in-person event, that requires planning too, so the interpreter can get to the appointment on time and be available during that session. In other words, you're paying for our professional availability and knowledge, not for how many words or minutes you need us to translate or interpret for you. If we decide to offer you a discount, a 2-for-1 deal, or even a freebie, that is our prerogative, so be thankful and don't make assumptions. Being bilingual is not enough. Taking a couple of years of language classes or spending a couple of months in another country is not enough for someone to become a qualified translator or interpreter, nor is it enough for someone to have been raised in a bilingual environment, because the way they use their language for their own purposes still needs to be adapted and amplified into a professional setting so that they can facilitate communication for others. Translating and interpreting takes a lot more than being familiar with the language. It takes years of studying the theory and practice of our professional activities and continuing education to improve our skills and keep up with how our languages evolve. After all, translators and interpreters are not dictionaries, remember? They do not replace one word with another. Instead, they contextualize the entire message and all the cultural, social, and political aspects that have contributed to putting together the original message in the first place. Bonus round. Subtitlers need access to the video file they're subtitling. Providing a link to a video online is not enough for subtitlers to work efficiently in providing the respective subtitles. Subtitlers need a video file they can load into a subtitling software or platform in order to mark the start and end times when a subtitle will appear on screen, in addition to actually translating the message appropriately to provide a pleasant experience for viewers who speak a different language, so that the context of a video can inform, educate, and entertain the target audience in a foreign language just as much as that same video has been able to do for the viewers who speak the same language used in the original material. And even though technology has greatly evolved to provide subtitles based on speech recognition and machine translations, automatic subtitling still falls short when respecting the technical aspects involved in subtitling a video. In addition to conveying the message accurately in another language, subtitles serve a very important purpose, providing accessibility to a wider audience. Subtitlers not only make language-based decisions in the course of their work, but they must also pay attention to character limitation so that the message fits correctly on the screen. They must match the subtitle shown on screen with the audio and visual cues present in the video. They must keep reading speed in mind so that the audience can follow along with what's being said or shown. And they must break subtitle lines accordingly to facilitate how that information is read on screen. In other words, if a subtitle is too long or flashes too quickly on the screen, viewers will have a much harder time decoding the information they're receiving. And odds are they will not be as informed, educated, or entertained as viewers who are able to watch a video in the original language being used.
Make your translation processes simpler, faster, and better with XTRF, a translation management system that stands for Translation Made Simple. XTRF is made up of 3 integrated portals: the home, vendor, and client portals. Portals contain everything they each need for their part in the translation process. XTRF uses automation to help you work more efficiently every day, and it allows you to focus on work that really matters. XTRF is your one-stop shop for translation project management, but what we're most proud of is our flexibility. There are plenty of ways to tailor the system right out of the box. And we also have a dedicated customization team. They can work with you to come up with a unique solution to suit your specific needs. Just imagine what you could achieve with a tool like this. The options are almost limitless. Whether you're a small translation department, a growing company, or a big multinational, XTRF can help. XTRF, Translation Made Simple. Visit our website, xtrf.eu. Let's talk about your business.
Fellow language professionals who wish to be translators and interpreters. Let's now explore some misconceptions that you may still have about our field of work. Translation and interpretation skills cannot be acquired overnight. Just because you have knowledge in 2 languages, it does not mean you'll be able to facilitate communication for others. Translating and interpreting goes beyond being familiar or even conversant in a language. It requires technical and theoretical knowledge in how information is presented in each language, and, when applicable, what cultural, social, and political aspects have influenced the way that such information is presented as well. In other words, you may have taken some language classes or studied abroad, but those were only the first steps towards a future in translation and interpretation, which demands a lot of studying and continuing education. Your target language is just as important as your source language, if not more. You may have devoted years to studying a foreign language, and you're great at understanding it and even communicating your thoughts and feelings in it. However, if you neglect your target language, all will be lost in translation. Keep in mind that translating and interpreting have a very specific purpose: facilitating the communication of others. Did you understand everything in the original material? Good for you! Can you communicate that information using the same register and context in the target language? Will speakers of your target language be able to consume the information the same way as the original audience in the source language has been able to? Does your translation or interpretation flow well, or is it heavily contingent upon knowledge of the source language? In other words, if you translate or interpret in broken language, mimicking the sentence structure of the source language, I bet your target audience will be left confused and uninformed. Just because you provide one service, it doesn't mean you'll be able to provide the other. You may be a very skilled translator, but lack the resources to act professionally as an interpreter. You may be a very skilled interpreter, but lack the knowledge to properly use your languages in the written form. Apart from your skills, your personality may also influence the kind of work you're more suited for. Do you hate the idea of spending hours and hours staring at a computer screen? Well, you may not be cut out to be a translator. Are you always late for appointments? You most definitely won't last long in the interpretation field, which requires you to be ready to go at the scheduled time. Are you a great speaker and think quickly on your feet, but lousy at spelling and grammar? You'd potentially make a better interpreter than a translator. Are you great at typing and researching, have great computer skills, and can focus and multitask in a home office environment, but are extremely shy and tongue-tied, and get easily overwhelmed when you have to do it live? You'd potentially make a better translator than an interpreter. Specialization is key, but it's not all black and white. Unless you work with a very unique language combination in a very niche market and there is a huge demand for your services, being highly specialized may not be the best idea. By all means, yes, specialize in an area that you know well. If you have a professional or academic background in that area, that's even better, because you've been on the other side of it while either studying or preparing material about that subject. However, specialization isn't all black and white. Some fields of knowledge are interwoven and may be present in a single project, so you must be prepared to do more extensive research about a particular topic or reach out to a colleague who specializes in that area. You should also be able to diversify yourself and pivot. One day you may be translating a marketing piece. The next day you may be working on a client satisfaction survey. And the following day, you may need to translate information contained on a package or a manual. As long as you're working with subjects you're familiar with, and ideally would have been able to express yourself well in that area, either by writing an article or carrying on a conversation with someone who works in that field, you'll be able to provide a professional service and fulfill your duties. Additionally, you avoid getting a negative reputation for being bad at what you do just because you accepted a project or an assignment you were not equipped to work on. Diversification takes planning, skills acquisition, and knowledge in your segment of interest. You may be a great translator or interpreter, but diversifying your services may not come as easily as you expect. Do you already have years of experience in your technical niche and would now like to try your hand at literary translations or subtitling? Great! Now roll up your sleeves and start learning more about that segment in particular. If you've spent years working in technical translations, you need to learn more about yourself as a creative translator. If you've been an interpreter for years, you may need to adapt the way you use your voice to go into voiceover and narration. The good news is that you already have valuable skills, but now you need to invest time in adapting them to your new area of interest. And above all, you have to seek educational opportunities and learn from the best so you can get ready to break into a new field in the future. Bonus round. You don't translate or interpret for personal satisfaction. Being a translator or an interpreter isn't a glamorous thing. It takes years of studying and perfecting your skills, and you're never done learning new things. It's definitely a challenging and a rewarding segment that allows you a lot of freedom if you're working for yourself, so you can make your own schedule and only work on projects and assignments that you enjoy. However, you must always keep in mind that you are not the target audience of your work. You are not translating or interpreting to pat yourself on the back and say, "Wow, and I'm smart." No, your main responsibility is to facilitate communication between two groups of people that speak different languages. You're not in it for your personal satisfaction. You're in it to help people understand each other, to help a company sell their products and services, to help consumers make an informed decision when buying products and services, to help humanitarian efforts, to help people unwind after a long day and enjoy a movie or series that was originally created in a foreign language. Yes, it's great to do what we love to do, but we're in it to help others, not to make a quick buck or to boast about our language skills. So, with that in mind, be responsible and be professional, because the pen is mightier than the sword, and a word can also be worth 1,000 pictures. Send me an email at rlombardino@wordawareness.com or leave a voice message on my Anchor page. If I get enough feedback and voice messages, I can go back to the subject and post a special podcast episode with everyone's opinion on this very same theme. By the way, my Anchor page is anchor.fm/translation-confessional. I look forward to hearing from you. Stay tuned for weekly episodes and subscribe to Translation Confessional through your favorite podcast app.